Welcome back to another episode of Way Too Wifey. I'm your host, respectfully Gabby, and in this podcast, we talk all about dating and relationships in this modern day. We have a very special guest today. She is a therapist. Jackie, welcome to Way Too Wifey.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel that when you sent me the invite, I was like, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about mental health, talk about relationships, and, hopefully share something that may resonate with someone out there.
Oh, I'm sure it will. So I usually like to start off with an icebreaker. So what are your thoughts on sharing location with your significant other?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I am a person that I'm okay with sharing my location, especially with safety nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
And me and my partner shared locations and continue to share locations right now. And it just brings safety to me. I think it's just something that we both agreed on. And
Yeah.
if both people or any person that is in the relationship consent to it, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, on both sides of the thing, like I could totally see that side of it for sure. And the safety and like I know my mom uses it to see like whenever her husband's gonna come home, to like prep for dinner and stuff. But like I know that if I were to have had that in like my past relationships of being like very insecure in those relationships, I think that I would have been like checking their location constantly, but I think it really just depends on the intentions behind it. But do you think that that insecurity is something that you can work on inside of the relationship, or do you think that you have to heal that part of you beforehand?
I'm a strong believer that we can heal in relationships. And
Hmm.
this is not just with romantic relationships, it could be with platonic relationships, it could be with friendships, it could be with parental familial relationships. However, there needs to be awareness of these triggers and behaviors and anxieties that may
Hmm.
come across. I can speak from my own experience. Me and my partner, when we met each other, obviously, like we spoke about relationship needs and relationship history and things like that.
Hmm.
And as the relationship gradually progressed, it was something that we talked about, like sharing locations, and we
Hmm.
both gave consent to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, at some point, like let's be real, at the beginning of the relationship, I was very insecure because of just the relationship trauma that I have experienced in
Yeah.
family relationships and in other past relationships. So guess what I did? I got myself to I went into therapy
Yeah.
again. And I really digged deep into why I was so anxious and insecure at the beginning of the relationship. And it wasn't until I had to build a relationship with myself.
Yeah.
As honest, it wasn't until I digged deep and I cried and I went through like this emotional roller coaster while being in a relationship and still dealing with my stuff,
Hmm.
that now I'm in a better place of building safety within me, whether I'm in a relationship or not in a relationship. But that's
Yeah.
a journey, Gabby. That is
Yeah.
I'm 29 years old, about to be 30, and I'm just learning this now.
Yeah. Same. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's tough. Personally, I don't think that you need to be fully healed to be in a relationship, but I think what I've noticed is every time my un and not that I'm fully healed by any means, but anytime my unhealed version of myself would attract certain people, I feel like it was also just very toxic people as well. So, at what point do you think you can say like, okay, I can put myself out there into dating people, or when should I just take a step back and work on myself?
That's a great question. And that answer can be different for everyone because we know ourselves the best, right?
Hmm.
And it's okay for you to take a pause and look inward and explore whether you feel capable, whether you have the emotional bandwidth to go on a date
Yeah.
and meet someone. And not to say like I'm so grateful for all of my past relationships, whether they have been friendships or romantic relationships. I
Yeah.
have learned so much from them about myself, about my triggers, about my behaviors, about my reactive patterns, about my cycles. You can't do the work unless you're in relationships, because relationships are going to trigger you.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you the unresolved trauma that may still need some work. So, this
Yeah.
whole concept of like being fully healed, what is that? What does that even look like for someone, right? Because we
Yeah.
can be a work in progress. We're constantly evolving and moving forward. So, big question mark right there, right? So,
Hmm.
just having awareness, being mindful of how your responses or reactions make someone else feel. And again, both people really have to consent, or if it's more than, two people in one relationship, everyone has to consent and do the work while whether it is being in a relationship or not being in a relationship.
Right. I think that having a partner that's supportive and like willing to do the work with you too is huge. I remember I was talking to someone a while ago and he was like, "Don't you think that you need to heal a little bit more before like we get into anything?" And I was like, "No." Like what? But I've noticed in the past I have like definitely self-sabotaged a lot of relationships and I wanted to get into that a little bit. Why do you think people self-sabotage relationships? Like where does that stem from?
That may probably stem from our own attachments that we have with our parents.
Yeah.
And it really goes circle back home. And, you know, one of the beautiful things about finding a therapist that you can relate to and
Mhm.
you feel safe with doing the work is this right here. Like learning where the hurt is rooted from.
Yeah.
What is it that happened in your childhood that now as an adult is coming up for you? Right. So I can speak for myself and I'll use my example. I went into pursuing the therapy world as a therapist, as a Latina therapist, because of my own experiences. And I really wanted to understand my family. And I
Hmm.
really wanted to break those cycles that I saw from early on, that I knew this wasn't normal. And for the longest time, even as I transitioned from like my bachelor's to my master's to starting practicum to, starting my career, it was a mess because
Yeah.
not only, are we working on our own self, but we're also there for other people. So even though I may have the evidence-based practice and the degrees, that didn't take away from actually me having an insecure attachment.
Hmm.
So while I was getting my education, I have had an insecure attachment. And that was whether I was anxiously attached or dance between anxious and avoidant attached.
Yeah.
And
That
this
was
is
me.
based, yeah, and this is based off fear, based off relationship trauma, that because we may have grown up in environments where parents didn't meet our needs as children, guess what? We become adults and we're still babies. We are still children asking,
Yeah.
like, hey, see me, hey, hug me, hey, love me the way that I need to be loved.
Yeah. It's
So,
tough.
girl, it's tough. It's rough out here.
How can our parents, in which ways, I guess, can they cause our insecure attachments?
This could be, many various environmental stressors in the home.
Hmm.
For example, let's say that one of your parents went to prison or jail. And so now you had to grow up with a single mom who was still trying to figure out her own mental health. Of course, because there is that environmental stressor that is occurring in the home, the kids may feel something, some sort of abandonment, some
Hmm.
sort of fear. Is my parent coming back home?
Yeah.
Also, it can stem from various moves. Let's say you moved 5, 6 times when you were a child. And that constant adjustment that you have to do over and over and feeling a lack of safety,
Yeah.
then as an adult, you feel the need of always having a safe space. And anytime there is an adjustment or a change, it dysregulates you.
Yeah. So
So
true.
also it can be from, a parent navigating their own mental illness, substance use, not being
Mhm.
able to meet the child's needs. It could also be growing up in families where the oldest daughter or the oldest son is being parentified, right?
Mhm.
So also childbirth and poverty and all of these factors that can play a role in a child's life.
As someone coming to you as a client, where would you start? Would you start at the very beginning, or like how do you identify the very root cause? Because I feel like that's how you get to the healing process. But where do you start in the getting to the root?
The first session typically looks like the biopsychosocial assessment, which is an intake,
Hmm.
and it's an interview where I explore presenting problem, what's happening in their life, what type of environmental stressors do they have.
Hmm.
We talk about family history, relationship history. We talk about friendships. We talk about moves. So, in that first session, it really captures what really happened in the client's lives. Then, the first individual session, the framework that I like to go into is attachment styles and psychoeducating what is secure, what is anxious, what is avoidant, and what is fearful.
Hmm.
Because believe it or not, that can give us a baseline of where we're at. And that usually sparks the conversation of, well, Jackie, why now that we are talking about anxiously attached? Yeah, my parents were very inconsistent with their parenting. They had to be at work. Maybe they migrated from somewhere else and they came to the US and they were working 2 jobs and they were in survival mode. And so
Hmm.
it starts unpacking by implementing the psychoeducation on attachment theory, and then it just turns into a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know I've read the book Attached. So I kind of know a little bit about like the attachment styles. I've never heard of the fearful attachment style. Is that an actual attachment style?
Fearful attached, fearful attachment is a combination of anxious and avoidant. So
Okay.
yeah, so it touches base on feeling maybe sometimes they can struggle with codependency. They
Hmm.
can struggle with who they are as a person, prioritize other people's needs, and the avoidant attachment, which is the push pull, the fear of intimacy, right? The lack of connection and sometimes being preoccupied with relationships and sometimes being confused with love. While the fearful attachment is seen very rarely because most people will go into either like anxious or avoidant, and they dance between those two sometimes.
Yeah.
Remember that this is a theory and evidence-based practice that can help us understand where we're at, to understand us and understand why these patterns are showing up, and to walk towards being more secure.
Okay. If they're in an insecure attachment style, you think that people can get into a secure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, something that I've learned is that it really depends on the type of relationship that you have with people.
Okay.
Every person that comes into your life, that attachment can be different, right? So
Hmm.
let's say that with my dad, for the longest time, I had a very anxious attachment with him. With my mom, I had more of a secure attachment that danced between secure and anxious. So it just
Okay.
really depends the way that you feel in the relationship with that person.
Okay. Relating that to romantic relationships, if there's someone that you have an anxious attachment style, do you think that someone can overcome that attachment style with that specific person, or is that just not your person?
It can get complicated.
Yeah.
It can definitely get complicated. And what I've also learned and what I've also attracted in the past, I can be very anxious attached and I can attract someone who is avoidant attached. And that interaction is so common, more
Mhm.
common than you think. And this dynamic can really be very chaotic. It can disturb your peace.
Yeah.
It can get you off balance. And without the awareness that these cycles are happening, it's just not going to go anywhere. So this is
Yeah.
why it's recommended. If it's a new relationship, go seek a therapist because we all have shit to work on. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Like no matter in what profession you're in, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your age is, there's something that, needs improvement or that can need exploration or
Hmm.
insight or, breaking those cycles and seeing that dynamic can be very toxic. The
Yeah.
anxious and yeah, the push pull, cat and mouse.
Yeah. I think I've noticed for me anyway, I think that, okay, I'm healed and I feel good and I'm not talking to anyone at the time and I just feel great. Okay, I'm ready to put myself out there. And then as soon as I do and I catch feelings for someone, I kind of notice these emotions start to come up, stories in my head of like, oh, what if they're out doing this? And we're not even in a relationship. I'm just talking to these people. Do you think that those feelings kind of ever go away, or is it something that you constantly have to like work on and work through?
Safety and connection
Hmm.
are two important factors that
Hmm.
need to be present in a relationship.
Yeah.
If you don't feel safe, then you're probably going to be hella anxious.
Yeah.
If you don't feel connected to that person, you're going to be overthinking. Do they
Yeah.
want me? Right. So, safety and connection, it's a must in order for you to work towards having a healthy relationship. Of course, we're not always going to feel connected, and there's ebbs and flows in relationships. But this is why communication also plays a huge role, right? Where
Hmm.
there is open dialogue, where there is, hey, I feel disconnected. Hey, I feel like we haven't prioritized our relationship. What can we do about it? And
Hmm.
both people or whoever, if it's more than two people in the relationship, that needs to flow in order to walk towards a secure relationship. Now,
Yeah.
we're not always going to be in the same healing journeys as other people. So sometimes you may take pauses from people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to sprinkle hate or we're going to sprinkle like F you,
Right.
you effed me. But no, it's like we're all in different healing journeys. And if you're not for me right now, then that's okay. I need to take care of myself. And that's where building safety within yourself is important. Making sure that you are okay and that you're meeting your needs
Hmm.
before waiting for someone else to meet your needs.
That's tough. I think one of the things that I've kind of started implementing is just like telling myself, like, is there really ever any evidence for me to worry? Is there any evidence? Have they been consistent or inconsistent? If they've been inconsistent, then that's a problem. And then just reminding myself that if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I think that people think way too far into the future. This is it. Like, this needs to happen the way that I want it to happen. And it just doesn't always necessarily go the way that you want it to go.
You sometimes have to let people go, Gabby. And
Yeah.
that's one of the hardest things that someone can feel.
Yeah.
Like not knowing, is this the right decision? Is this the
Hmm.
wrong decision? Is this the best decision for me? But, they're human, we're human. And letting go is sometimes part of life,
Yeah.
part of growth. We sometimes outgrow situations, we sometimes outgrow people, we sometimes outgrow jobs, we sometimes outgrow therapists, and
Yeah.
that's okay, right? But if you deep inside, you feel like your nervous system continues to be activated with someone, your body is telling you something.
Yeah.
Your body will give you so many answers. exactly where you're at. Have you ever recognized any internal shifts within you? Like when you're with someone and you kind of start feeling like your body kind of starts feeling like you're
Oh yeah.
rejecting that person.
I actually made an episode on this. Is like I literally physically feel sick to my stomach and will get sick around people that are not for me. Like my body has learned, I'm like, it's straightforward enough to know. I was on a date with this, he seemed really great, but every time I would hang out afterwards, I would feel sick. So I'm just like, I can't keep doing this. I'm just gonna listen to my body this time. If it comes back around, whatever, but no, not right now.
And I totally hear you. Listen to your body. Your
Yeah.
body knows best. Body keeps the score, period. And also, I encourage if anyone relates to this situation to explore, why did my body feel this way?
Ooh.
What triggered me? What didn't sit well with me when I was with this particular person? Because that is where we get the more evidence in where we're at.
Hmm.
Is it because my dad used to speak like that and he used to raise his voice, and
Hmm.
when I'm in front of this person, they start raising their voice, and that scares me. That startles me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we can learn from people and spaces, and that sometimes we don't really recognize because maybe we're fearful or we're like panic and we're anxious and we much rather run away without even exploring. Right.
Ooh. I mean, that could be.
Girl, I was a runner. I was like, I've been a runner. I'm like, this is the first time. I don't know if it's just because I'm turning 30 that I am more comfortable being here, being still. And
Mhm.
that felt so uncomfortable for me to do for such a long time.
But I just wanted to wrap things up really quickly. I always ask people what their best at dating advice is, but I wanted to ask you, what is the worst dating advice that you've heard or that you've been told?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever thought about that. What is the worst dating advice that I've ever heard?
Yeah, I just feel like there's so much like misinformation out there. And sometimes I'll come across like a TikTok video or like someone talking about it, have such a wrong idea about this.
I and this is from personal beliefs and values. I believe in providing a safe space in a relationship.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes some people can have this very one-sided approach,
Hmm.
right? Of course, we all have different relationship needs, and those need to be discussed when you are with that person.
Yeah.
But what if it doesn't look like that all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
what if our ideas of relationship may change as you meet someone? Because maybe we can have this idea of a relationship that, I want XYZ in a relationship.
Hmm.
But are we really going to meet all of those categories? Are maybe they're going to be really strong on empathy and compassion and giving, but
Hmm.
maybe they may need, you know, some work on another different area because we're not perfect beings. So
Yeah.
does that mean just because that person can't fully give you that now, right? Are we going to cut them off?
Right.
So, this is where communication plays a huge role, and you identify what are your non-negotiables
Yeah.
and really communicate, because the chances of us meeting someone that meets full criteria, like boom, boom, check after check after check,
Yeah.
that may be unrealistic
Yeah. I agree.
because we're not perfect beings. We're not perfect people. We all have shit to work on.
Yeah.
So
And
finding a
realistically,
partner.
we all have our own issues too. So do you expect someone else to be as perfect as your list?
Yeah,
So,
it's about finding a partner who is ready to do the work with you. It's about finding a partner who is emotionally mature to be able to have conversations with you, not
yeah.
one-sided conversations.
Hmm.
and to be aware of unresolved trauma that may stem from our childhood. That comes up a lot, especially if you grew up in a dysfunctional family or a chaotic environment. So
Um,
get your healing.
yeah.
Get your healing. Get your healing. Do it for you. Do it for
Right.
you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Therapy Lux. They also can find me on TikTok, same at. There is a fake account currently going around with
Ugh.
double X. I know. So it's just one X, one X. And that's it. That's my username. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, and maybe possibly soon to be on YouTube, but I need to
Okay.
definitely like
One step at a time.
one step at a time. Yeah.
Love
Thank,
that. But if you guys need therapy,
thank you, Gabby.
um, yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this episode and appreciate you.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you for having me. You're beautiful.
Oh my God,
And,
thank you.
I hope to maybe a year from today or 6 months from today, to maybe discuss this again, just to see
Yes,
where we're at, right?
let's
Because
do
we're
it. Well, you guys, I will see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks so much for tuning in.